Muzan Kibutsuji is one of the most iconic villains in modern shonen. He is the progenitor of all demons and the final boss in Demon Slayer. Today I'll be going over everything you need to know about the Demon King, including his mysterious origins and incredible demonic powers. So let's get into it. Muzan was born in the Heian era, and it's said that he has witnessed all of Sukuna's techniques that he hasn't used since then.
Impossible.
His heart stopped multiple times while he was in his mother's womb, and after he was born, it was believed that he was dead because he had no pulse and couldn't even breathe. It was only when he was about to be cremated that he started crying and narrowly escaped death. Even after being born, he struggled with illnesses throughout his young life and was told that he would be lucky to reach 20. His dire situation made him turn to a doctor for treatment who gave him a medicine that contained a rare ingredient called the blue spider lily. But after taking the medicine, his symptoms got even worse, which led him to kill the doctor in a rage. However, it was only after killing the doctor that he realized the medicine was actually working, giving him a strong body. But this came at the cost of losing his humanity as he began craving human flesh and blood, which frankly didn't bother him at all. What did bother him was the fact that he could no longer walk in sunlight as it would burn and kill him. His anger only grew as he thought having to restrict his movements during the day was humiliating, and it was only then that he truly regretted his foolish decision to kill the doctor before completing the treatment. Not being able to walk at daytime made him obsessed with finding the blue spider lily, as he considered himself to be imperfect and wanted to be rid of his weakness to sunlight. He began searching the entire country for the next 1,000 years and turned countless people into demons, hoping one of them would eventually find the flower or withstand sunlight. However, his search was futile, as Muzan was unaware that the flower only blooms during the daytime for 2 or 3 days a year. In his early years as a demon, Muzan married 5 different women. However, he verbally abused all of his wives to the point where they took their own lives. Sometime later, Muzan encounters Tamayo, who is suffering from a life-threatening illness. Muzan offers her treatment by transforming her into a demon, and Tamayo accepts his offer because she wants to see her children grow up. However, after becoming a demon, she loses control and starts killing people, including her own family. This makes Tamayo develop a strong hatred for Muzan, but she can't do anything about it due to Muzan's immense power. After this incident, Muzan enslaves Tamayo, and she follows him around as a lowly servant. During the Sengoku era, Muzan seeks to transform someone who can use a breathing style into a demon. That's when he finds Yorichi's twin brother, Michikatsu Tsugikuni, the user of moon breathing. Michikatsu has always been jealous of his brother's power, and hates the fact that he will die young due to the curse of the Demon Slayer mark. So when Muzan asks him to become a demon, he accepts the offer without hesitation. The Demon King gives Michikatsu an extremely high concentration of his blood, and Michikatsu takes the name Kokushibo after becoming a demon. Not long after that, Muzan and Tamayo would encounter none other than Yorichi Tsugikuni, the progenitor of breathing styles. The moment Yorichi sees Muzan, he senses an overwhelming aura of malice radiating from the Demon King, comparing it to magma erupting from a volcano. It's also during this confrontation that we learn Muzan's bizarre anatomy. He has 7 hearts and 5 brains. He underestimates Yorichi and suddenly starts attacking him. However, Yorichi dodges his blows effortlessly and uses the 13th form of sun breathing to cut him into pieces. Muzan is stunned by Yorichi's power and also the fact that he can't regenerate his body. Just when Yorichi is about to deliver the final blow, Muzan resorts to a desperate escape, splitting himself into 1,800 pieces. Yorichi's technique is so powerful that it leaves permanent scars on Muzan's body, and this encounter would haunt the Demon King for the rest of his life. After this incident, Muzan starts slaughtering anyone who uses sun breathing and never directly confronts the Demon Slayers again, instead sending demons to do his bidding. While there aren't any exact time references, Muzan eventually forms the 12 Kizuki and splits them into 2 groups of 6, the upper ranks and the lower ranks. The upper rank demons remain unchanged for over centuries, while the lower ranks frequently change due to being killed by demon slayers. Muzan then grants the upper ranks a unique privilege, allowing them to transform humans into demons with their blood, but these new demons must be approved by Muzan himself before becoming full-fledged members. Much later in the Taisho era, Muzan locates the Kamado family, who are the keepers of sun breathing. He injects them with his blood, hoping they would become demons resistant to sunlight. However, the members of Kamado family can't withstand the immense power of his blood and die in the process. Muzan becomes disappointed and leaves their home, unaware of the fact that Nezuko has survived survived and become a demon. And the Demon King isn't seen again until he appears in Asakusa, where he's disguising himself as a human with a wife and child. Tanjiro also happens to be there and manages to find the Demon King thanks to his sensitive nose. However, before Tanjiro can act, Muzan escapes by causing a commotion and turning someone in the crowd into a demon, which makes you wonder why he didn't just kill Tanjiro instead. You know, for someone with 5 brains, Muzan doesn't seem very bright. Anyway, as Muzan leaves, he catches a glimpse of Tanjiro's Hanafuda earrings, which trigger his memories of Yorichi. Afterwards, he sends his pseudo family home in a carriage and starts wandering in an alley where he's confronted by a drunken group. A guy from the group mocks the Demon King, telling him his pale skin makes him look half dead. And with that, this guy earns the title of the second dumbest character in Demon Slayer, second only to the dude who rejected Mitsuri, of course. This insult makes the Demon King furious enough to kill the group while declaring that he isn't sickly and is close to perfection. This reveals that despite all his power, Muzan is still haunted by his frail days before becoming a demon. He then calls Suzumaru and Yahaba, ordering them to kill Tanjiro, which we all know ultimately failed. After the death of the Lower Moon 5 Rui, Muzan summons the remaining lower ranks to a meeting inside the Infinity Castle. Here it's the first time that we see the Demon King using his shape-shifting abilities, disguising himself as a woman. The disguise is so convincing that the Lower Moons don't recognize him at first. It's also during this meeting that we learn Muzan has telepathic powers and can read the thoughts of his demons just by looking at them. Who would have thought the Demon King shares a power with Anya Forger? In the meeting, Muzan declares he will disband the lower ranks due to their weakness and will now lead only the upper ranks. He starts slaughtering the Lower Moons, and when one of them tries to run away, he catches up to him and kills him as well. You know what? I changed my mind. This dude is even dumber than the drunk guy. I still think the guy who rejected Mitsuri is the dumbest though. In the end, Muzan spares only the Lower Moon 1 Enmu, giving him a significant amount of his blood and commanding him to kill Tanjiro. However, this plan ultimately fails as well. We don't see Muzan again until he assumes another identity among humans, this time pretending to be a small boy with a skin condition that prevents him from stepping into the sun. He is adopted by a wealthy family, and his rich father tries to create a special medicine to treat his son's disease. During this time, Muzan is met by the upper rank 3 Akaza, who reports that he couldn't find the blue spider lily. He also informs Muzan that he successfully killed Kyojuro Rengoku as if it were an accomplishment. Muzan flies into a rage as he berates Akaza that he should have killed all the other demon slayers that were present. The Demon King goes on to express his disappointment in him and sends Akaza away. Sometime later, Muzan visits the Upper Moon 6 Daki in the entertainment district. He tells her he's proud of her for having killed 7 Hashira in the past and orders her to kill Nezuko because she has slipped from his grasp like Tamayo. After the defeat of the Upper 6 siblings, Muzan summons the upper ranks to the Infinity Castle for the first time in 113 years. He appears to be experimenting with some kind of a medicine to overcome his weakness to sunlight. Muzan tells them that he won't allow any failures like Daki and Gyutaro. He adds that if Gyutaro had fought alone, he would have won the fight, and that he only lost because Daki was his weakness. He continues to scold the upper ranks, questioning their existence since they haven't found the blue spider lily or eliminated the Ubuyashiki family despite hundreds of years. He then sends Yoko and Hantengu to destroy the Swordsmith village and kill anyone who lives there. Despite these 2 upper ranks failing as well, Muzan finally witnesses the one thing he has dreamed of for over 1,000 years. Through his cells inside Hantengu's body, Muzan finds out that Nezuko is able to withstand the sun. He realizes he doesn't need to search for the blue spider lily anymore because he can simply devour Nezuko and overcome his weakness to sunlight. After Hantengu's death, Muzan appoints Nakime as the new upper rank 4 and uses her tracking skills to spy on the demon slayers in order to find Nezuko and the Ubuyashiki family. Nakime manages to locate 60% of demon slayers in a short time, which impresses Muzan. Not long after that, Muzan arrives at the Ubuyashiki mansion, meeting Kagaya and his wife Amane. Muzan wastes no time mocking Kagaya for his weak appearance, telling him he looks horrible and smells like a corpse. And it's here that we learn Muzan is distantly related to the Ubuyashiki family. Kagaya explains that because they gave birth to a monster like him, their bloodline was cursed with early deaths, with all members dying before the age of 30. Muzan dismisses this as nonsense, claiming he was never cursed or punished for killing thousands of humans in his lifetime. Kagaya tells him that he's dead wrong and that he has hurt too many people to simply escape. He adds that while his own death won't harm the Demon Slayer Corps, it will be significant. The Demon Slayers, especially the Hashira, are very fond of him, so his death will strengthen their determination even further. And at this point, Muzan has had enough and begins to attack Kaguya. However, the mansion suddenly explodes, catching Muzan in the blast. Muzan realizes that this was all planned from the start as he tries to regenerate. However, spike traps were added to the explosion, causing enough damage to delay his regeneration. While he's busy regenerating, Muzan senses the demon slayers approaching, and suddenly flesh seeds appear around him. The blood demon art does no harm to him, however it immobilizes him and keeps him in place. Then out of nowhere, Tamayo appears and stabs her hand into Muzan's body. Enraged to see her, Muzan hears Tamayo explain that he has absorbed her hand, which contains a medicine that can turn demons back into humans. Muzan scoffs, telling her she has no right to hate him because it wasn't him who killed her family, but Tamayo herself. Tamayo starts crying, saying all she wanted was to see her kids grow up and that she wouldn't have become a demon if she had known what would happen. Muzan continues to tear her down, reminding her that she also killed many other people besides her family and enjoyed doing it. Tamayo admits her mistakes and tells him that she will atone for what she has done by her death and Muzan's. Then she calls out the stone Hashira, Gyome Himejima, who immediately beheads the Demon King with his Nichiren flail. However, Muzan regenerates his head instantly, which doesn't surprise Gyome because he learned from Kaguya that Muzan's only weakness is sunlight. This means if the demon slayers want to kill him once and for all, they have to keep him preoccupied until sunrise. All the other Hashira and Tanjiro join the battle, each using their breathing technique to cut down the Demon King. However, the Infinity Castle suddenly appears beneath them, sucking in all the people nearby and scattering them. As they drop into the castle, Muzan starts insulting the demon slayers, declaring that he will slaughter them all tonight. The Infinity Castle separates the demon slayers, forcing them to fight different upper rank demons. As they manage to defeat the upper ranks and attempt to locate Muzan, several lower ranked members find him encased in a flesh cocoon alongside Tamayo, whom he's absorbing. The swordsmen argue among themselves, wondering if they should wait for the Hashira or start attacking on their own. A transformed Muzan suddenly emerges from the cocoon and kills them all in a blink of an eye. He slaughters them so quickly that Kiriya Ubuyashiki, the new leader of the Demon Slayer Corps, can't even tell them to retreat. Here's the first time we see Muzan in his final form. His hair color is now white and his limbs are entirely covered by mouths. He thanks the fallen swordsman for the meal, saying that he was starving and that it helps him recover even faster. He holds Tamayo's head in his hand and mocks her for being unable to kill him, ridiculing the medicine she made as useless. Tamayo angrily replies that today is the day he will fall into hell and starts crying as she demands Muzan to give her family back. Muzan coldly tells her to die and join the family she killed and then crushes her head. He then goes on and kills another group of demon slayers in an instant, once again declaring that he will kill all the demon slayers tonight. The Demon King is then transported where Giyu and Tanjiro are through Nakime's blood demon art. The second Tanjiro sees Muzan, he goes into a rage as he remembers his family and all his loved ones killed by demons. Muzan speaks to them coldly, saying that the demon slayers are annoyingly persistent and all they ever talk about is avenging their loved ones. He goes on and says, so your families got killed. What's the big deal? Consider yourselves lucky because you've survived and that should be enough for you. He then compares himself to natural disasters, saying that no one blames earthquakes or volcanoes for killing people. So why blame him? He ends his antagonistic speech by saying that the demon slayers fight him because they are a bunch of deviants and he's had enough dealing with them. Tanjiro is now angrier than ever, telling Muzan that he's a being that shouldn't be allowed to exist. The battle begins as Muzan extends his arms into whips that are as sharp as a blade thanks to his shape-shifting ability. The two swordsmen manage to dodge his slashes at first. However, Tanjiro tries to get closer to the Demon King and loses an eye in the process. As Muzan continues to attack, he informs them that Mitsuri and Obanai have been killed by Nakime. However, as Tanjiro struggles to keep up with one eye, Mitsuri and Obanai appear out of nowhere and save him. Muzan is shocked to see the two Hashira alive and demands an explanation from Nakime, only to learn that their deaths were an illusion created by Yushiro, who took control of Nakime using his blood demon art. Yushiro uses Nakime's technique to continuously shift the castle and force Muzan out of it. The Demon King tries to wrestle control back from Yushiro by absorbing his cells through Nakime, but the Demon Slayers attack him, forcing him on the defensive and allowing Yushiro to gain control. Yushiro continues to shift the castle, which forces Muzan to remotely crush Nakime's head and kill her. However, before her cells disintegrate completely, Yushiro uses them to take control of the castle again as it moves all over the place. The castle stops shifting and the Demon Slayers start attacking Muzan from all directions. Muzan uses his whips to fight back and manages to slash Tanjiro again, this time on his back. And just as he's about to deliver a powerful blow to Mitsuri, Tanjiro throws a broken sword that stabs Muzan in the head, causing him to miss. Then the castle finally breaks to the surface and thankfully they all come out uninjured. Muzan rises from the rubble angrier than ever and immediately launches attacks with whips emerging from his spine, daring the Demon Slayers to try and keep him occupied until dawn. The three Hashira use their respective styles and dodge Muzan's attacks as they strive to approach him. Obanai's blade slices through his neck, however it doesn't make much difference as he regenerates his body the moment he's injured. The Hashira are shocked by Muzan's regeneration abilities and he seizes the opportunity to deliver what seems like a fatal blow to them. However, dozens of lower ranked members intervene, pushing the Hashira out of harm's way and sacrificing themselves in the process. Then another group of lesser ranked members charge at Muzan as Tanjiro tries to get closer to the battle. However, he suddenly coughs out blood and falls to the ground. Muzan reveals that he injected his blood into his attacks and explains that the amount of the blood is too much for demonization. Instead, it works like a poison and destroys human cells. As Tanjiro lies there suffering from the effects of the poison, Muzan declares that he is dead. The fight intensifies as Muzan unleashes yet another barrage of attacks and cuts the Hashira with his deadly whips. He notices that those bearing the Demon Slayer mark are still able to move and won't die easily even after getting hit by his whips. He then targets Mitsuri and just before he delivers a fatal blow, the stone Hashira suddenly appears and comes to her rescue. Right after that, Sanemi also appears out of nowhere and strikes Muzan from behind, cleaving him in two. He then tosses some bottles of oil and lights a match to set the Demon King on fire. Muzan gets furious as he says that's such a dirty trick, to which Sanemi replies that it's only fitting for the likes of him. The battle rages on as Gyomei notices that Muzan's attacks have gotten fast enough that the Hashira might not be able to keep up for much longer. Moments after that, Muzan manages to hit the injured Mitsuri yet again, this time cutting her left cheek and shoulder. He continues his assault on the love Hashira to get rid of her. However, the other Hashira stop his attack and save Mitsuri again. Then the Hashira fight the Demon King in close combat and Obanai manages to cut off one of his arms and kicks it away to stop regeneration. Meanwhile, Muzan's poison begins to take its toll on the Hashira as Giyu struggles to hold his blade and drops it momentarily. Muzan commends the Hashira for their persistence. However, he states that their fighting is futile as they will all succumb to the poison before sunrise. And sure enough, the poison gives the Hashira a very hard time, convinced that they won't make it until dawn. Just as hope seems lost, Tamayo's cat arrives and throws syringes at the Hashira, dosing them with an antidote to Muzan's poison. Realizing Tamayo got in his way again even after her death, Muzan grows infuriated and unleashes a devastating attack that the Hashira barely managed to evade. Eventually, the Hashira are joined by Kanao, Inosuke, and Zenitsu, who manage to land several sneak attacks on the Demon King while hidden through Yushiro's technique. Feeling the air around him parting, Muzan ultimately locates their position and slashes them, but only barely. At this point, all the Hashira are able to turn their blade red, which slows down Muzan's regeneration thanks to the Demon Slayer mark. Obanai slices both of Muzan's arms, followed by Gyomei, who destroys the left side of his chest completely. It's also because of the Demon Slayer mark that the Hashira are able to use the transparent world and find out about Muzan's unnatural physiology. However, as they're busy concentrating on his body, Muzan unleashes an all-out attack that crashes all of his attackers into buildings. The attack is powerful enough to knock all of them out. Gyomei and Giyu lose limbs, and Obanai loses his eyesight. With only Kanao left standing, she falls to her knees before the Demon King with a broken blade. Muzan prepares to strike her down, but a recovered Tanjiro intervenes and slices his arm, saving Kanao in the process. Seeing Tanjiro's mutated face as a result of his poison, Muzan comments that he looks terrible and asks him who's the true demon between them now. He also sees Yorichi's image in Tanjiro, as the Demon Slayer tells him that it's time to end their conflict. The battle between them commences as Tanjiro tries to combine all forms of sun breathing to defeat Muzan. As Tanjiro uses these techniques, Muzan is once again reminded of Yorichi. So yeah, the dude lives in Muzan's head rent-free even after his death. As Tanjiro continues his assault on the Demon King, a crow calls out above them, signaling only 1 hour remains before sunrise. Muzan is unimpressed as Tanjiro's technique is far from Yorichi's level and tries to seize the opportunity to end Tanjiro, who is weakening from injuries and exhaustion. However, to his own surprise, Muzan finds himself himself unable to land a decisive blow, realizing he has grown weaker as well. He deduces that this must be an after effect of the antidote and tries to communicate Tamayo's essence by bringing back some of her cells that he had absorbed. He asks Tamayo about the effects of the antidote. She starts mocking the Demon King, saying, "Why don't you use your useless brain cells to figure that out?" Further enraged, Muzan destroys what remains of Tamayo's consciousness and delves into her memories for answers. He discovers that the antidote contains two poisons, one intended to revert him to human and another that ages him 50 years every minute. Muzan calculates that he has aged 9,000 years since the battle began and realizes this is the reason for his white hair and his struggles against a severely injured Tanjiro. Tanjiro keeps unleashing successive forms of sun breathing, irritating the Demon King with his persistence. As Tanjiro is about to collapse from oxygen deprivation, Obanai joins the battle again and assists Tanjiro in fighting Muzan. Tanjiro is worried about Obanai's blindness now, but the Hashira reassures him he can see through his pet snake Kaburamaru. As the aging poison weakens Muzan further, scars from his ancient battle with Yorichi become visible across his entire body. These scars burned into his cellular level have never healed despite hundreds of years. Tanjiro and Obanai continue their assault on Muzan as a crow appears once again, signaling only 40 minutes remain until sunrise. Hearing this, Muzan becomes restless and tries to run away from the scene to avoid the imminent sunlight. As he tries to escape, he tramples over the corpses of the demon slayers he has slaughtered. This enrages Tanjiro, who is chasing him, and proceeds to throw multiple blades at him. The Demon King deflects the blades, noting that piercing attacks are now more dangerous for him than slashes. The Serpent Hashira stabs Muzan in the neck from behind, which stops his escape, and Tanjiro joins to assist. Despite Muzan's counterattacks with his whips, the two demon slayers simply refuse to let him get away. With 35 minutes before dawn, Muzan senses the wounded Hashira beginning to gain consciousness again, and deems it an unnecessary risk to continue the fight. He tries to split himself into pieces like he did against Yorichi. However, to his surprise, he finds himself unable to do so. He notes that there should be another ingredient in the antidote preventing him from dividing his cells. Tamayo's essence speaks to Muzan once more, revealing that there are actually not 3 but 4 ingredients in the antidote. The first 3 were meant to weaken him, and the 4th one is designed to destroy his cells. And sure enough, Muzan begins coughing up blood as the antidote takes effect, attacking and disintegrating his cells from within. Tamayo goes on and tells Muzan that she doesn't have to be stronger than him to kill him. She can simply make him weaker, and that just as he will do anything to stay alive, they will do anything to kill him. In a desperate attempt to survive, Muzan opens a gaping mouth on his torso and unleashes a strong shockwave which damages Tanjiro and Obanai enough that they become unable to move. As Muzan thinks he can finally escape, Inosuke appears in front of him, telling the Demon King that he'll pay for the lives of his fallen comrades by his death. Muzan is now unable to further use his previous technique, resorts to plunging his arm into the ground, and wraps Inosuke with his tentacle. Zenitsu also joins the battle and saves Inosuke. However, Muzan retaliates and crashes him into a building. Before Muzan can hit Zenitsu again, this time it's Inosuke's turn to save the day and crash into a building. At this point, Muzan is exhausted to the point he can't lift his arms, and to his horror, the Hashira begin to rise again. Tanjiro also gets up and performs the various forms of sun breathing again, while Inosuke and Zenitsu try to distract the Demon King. Zenitsu manages to do one last attack before getting severely injured by Muzan, and Tanjiro immediately seizes the chance to pin him to a building to keep him in place. As Muzan raises both of his arms to strike back, Mitsuri slashes his left arm, while Sanemi wounds his right. The Wind Hashira also pins him and helps Tanjiro to keep him in place. Now left with no choice, Muzan elongates his mouth in an attempt to eat Tanjiro, but the Serpent Hashira puts himself in harm's way to protect the young swordsman. At long last, the sun rises. Muzan panics at the sight of the sun and desperately unleashes a powerful shockwave, sending his attackers flying, except for Tanjiro, who loses his left arm in the process. Tanjiro firmly stays in place and grips his blade tightly as Giyu joins him to turn the blade red together, which causes Muzan to cough up blood. As the sunlight starts to burn his face, Muzan tries to protect himself with an armor of flesh by transforming into a giant baby. He absorbs Tanjiro into his flesh with his gigantic form and immediately tries to crawl away and get into the shade. Hordes of demon slayers and Kakushi block his path by tossing bookshelves and ramming vehicles on him to slow him down, and the Demon King, even in his baby form, fights back for a way through. Sanemi slashes his right arm, and Guillaume manages to chain him around the neck with help from other slayers. slayers, all determined to bring him down. However, the Demon King simply refuses to give up. When he realizes he can't run away, he resorts to digging underground. The Hashira relentlessly try to stop him, but they're simply too exhausted to continue any further. In what appears to be a hopeless moment, Tanjiro is able to ignite his blade and damage him from within, causing Muzan to flinch from the pain as he finally begins to disintegrate under the sun. You might think this is the end, but remember when I told you Muzan just refuses to give up? Well, with his last breath, he transfers his blood and memories into Tanjiro's body, turning him into the new Demon King. He then tells Tanjiro to fulfill his dream of conquering the sun and wiping out the entire Demon Slayer Corps. Tanjiro, now a demon, rampages in a feral state against the remaining Demon Slayers and overcomes the sun in no time. Although Tanjiro is now literally invincible, his consciousness battles with Muzan for control, with the help of Nezuko and Kanao. Kanao injects Tanjiro a medicine that turns him back into a human, finally bringing an end to Muzan's reign once and for all, thus concluding the story of the progenitor of all demons and the ultimate evil in Demon Slayer. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, make sure you give it a like and subscribe